Okay, welcome back. So the good news is that I'm going to be recording. Well, there is no good news. So the bad news is that I'm recording this during spring break for Howard County Public Schools, which means that there's a 2-year-old, an 8-year-old, and an 11-month-old puppy, all which may become a distraction. But for right now, we're just going to talk about the United States. That's going to be our case right now, and then we'll get into France in the next section. So a little bit of background. A lot of this is almost well, it's pretty obvious because a lot of you have grown up in the United States. You've taken all your little social studies classes and probably American politics, hopefully American politics here at UMBC, or if not, I encourage you to take it. Um, but a little background. So obviously it's the 48 contiguous states plus 2, Alaska and Hawaii. Then you've got 7 territories in the Caribbean and Pacific. This is the 4th largest country with respect to land size after Canada, Russia, and China. And it's the 3rd largest by population. So we've got 315 or so million. So we follow China and India. So we're a big one. We're also multi-ethnic, multiracial, about 15.5% Hispanic, 13% African American, 4.5% Asian American. It's a mostly Christian country, 78% Christian, 16% now classify themselves as unaffiliated. And then you've got some much smaller religions, 1.7% Jewish, 7% Buddhist, 0.7%, sorry, Buddhist, 0.6% Muslim, but growing, etc. So we've got a very highly dynamic state thanks to a natural population growth, but also thanks to legal and illegal immigration. Groups that we call minorities today likely won't be minorities in 30 or 50 years. So it's a highly changing country, which is in contrast to some of these other states that we've talked about, or that we will be talking about, which really try to put a halt to immigration or try to limit it to the best they can and encourage natural growth within the local population instead of inviting immigrants in, as you'll see in the case of France in a few minutes. This is also, our country is a highly urban population, a little less urban than the UK, but 80% urban. So the UK was 90% urban. And we're fairly educated, about 27%, so just over a quarter have BAs, 9% hold postgraduate degrees. I think one telling number is that 82% of students of age for tertiary or university education are studying in the U.S. So I don't know exactly what that age range is. It's probably 18 to 25 or so, the sort of traditional quote-unquote students. So 82% in the U.S., 76% in Norway, 75% in Sweden, 59% in the U.K., 56% in France. And then it plummets to around 15% in South Africa. 7% Nigeria, 23% China, 11% India. So these are just some numbers to get you think about this. There are other cases that we'll be talking about. So it's about 1/3 in the case of Iran, about 1/4 in the case of Mexico, 1/3 in the case of Brazil. I know this is fast, but the point is just to get some numbers sort of flashing through your heads. We've got the largest national economy. So far, at least, 25% of the world's economic output comes from the United States, even though we've got 5% of the world's population. We have a relatively liberal economic system. It's among the freest economies in the world. There are a couple that beat us, Singapore and Hong Kong, for example, but we've got some of the lowest tax rates in the world, and especially among advanced democracies. There are cycles of intervention, which are followed by some movement back, regulation, then deregulation. Generally speaking, though, we have a quite free economy, so this fits into the liberal model. Social spending is relatively low. About 12% of our gross domestic product is spent on social spending versus about 25% in the other advanced democracies around the world. Doesn't mean we don't spend a lot. We do, because we have a large economy. So that 12% of the GDP means that, for example, with respect to defense expenditures, we spend more than the next 13 countries combined. So we do spend a lot because we have a lot, but as a percentage of GDP, we spend quite little on social spending in particular. Our debt is somewhere in the 16.2, 16.4 trillion dollar range, depending on when you're listening to this. It's bound to be higher tomorrow. I won't be updating this tomorrow. So what that comes down to is somewhere around $45,000 or $50,000 a piece if we want to pay it off. And that includes the 2-year-old downstairs training the puppy as well. We've got a huge poverty rate. 12% of our country lives below the poverty line, about 21% of kids, which is the highest in advanced democracies. Again, so for comparative sake, our richest are also among the richest. Our richest are about 2 or 3 times richer than those in the UK or than those in France, other advanced democracies. And finally, we also pollute a lot. So about 25% of the global CO2 emissions come from right here at home. We're going to start off by talking about evolution versus revolution. We'll go through the evolution of our state, and then we'll talk about the institutions. I'm actually going to start with a new slide right here. Ding.